And we're here, Epic Spotlight, Epic Lunch and Learn. Welcome. This is the show where real estate meets real talk and your lunch break turns into a masterclass. I am Dante Royster. I am a mortgage broker. I'm an author and your guide through the mortgage maze. So, how are you today? Today, I am solo dolo. I am by myself today. Had a guest, unfortunately, doesn't feel well. And so, but the show must go on. The show must go on. One thing that you'll learn about me, if anything, is I try to be consistent. I like habits. I like to do things consistently. Drill has been drilled into me. My dad was a military guy, Army, and he was very about being consistent, delivering on a day in, day out basis. And that carried into sports. I was in a lot of team sports. Hey, you have practice from this time to this time. And then, what you do in between the times when practice is really what makes who you are today. Before we dive in, don't forget to give this a like, share with friends and family. I still get people that call me at 11:59 a.m. and I appreciate that, 11:59 a.m. Central Time, because they have a question, they want a scenario, and I'm like, I got to do the show. I got to call you back. So definitely that just tells me people don't know the show exists and I want to get this out here. Okay, so we are live on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Why did I forget that? So I definitely wanted to go ahead and remind people to like, share, and subscribe. Appreciate that. Epic Spotlight on YouTube, and we'll take it from there. I do have something I wanted to read today. Obviously, you guys know I'm Dante. Some people do call me Captain Epic. And my superpower, helping people land their dream homes, whether it's that cozy starter castle or a shiny new investment kingdom. But here's the thing, I don't just disappear once you've got the keys. Nope. I stick around like your financial life coach, your money therapist without the couch, making sure your mortgage works as hard as you do. Now, before we jump in today's spotlight, let's set the stage with what's happening right now in the market. The data tells a story, and right now that story has both highs and lows. Right now, we're seeing a low growth in African American Black home ownership rates. They have dropped down to 43.9%, the lowest in almost the last 4 years. That's just not a stat, that's real families locked out of this opportunity. And the sentiment is slipping too. Fannie Mae's latest home purchase sentiment index dipped to 69.8, with more people saying it's a bad time to sell and feeling less confident about their jobs. But here's the high, mortgage rates are finally holding steady in the mid 6% range. Purchase applications are up 25% year over year, and pending sales are actually ticking upward. That tells me people aren't just sitting around waiting for perfect, they're making moves. Entrepreneurs thrive in chaos, and real estate is the ultimate entrepreneurial play. Okay, so that was my little story time for you. I try to do a story in the beginning segment of every show. But yeah, I am solo dolo by myself today. So I need your help. Please put in a comment, ask me some questions, and let's make sure we make this a good one because this is about you. I wanted to help you. That's why I started the show. That was the whole purpose of it, was to help you, just improve and be better and understand real estate. This is the situations and these are the kind of concepts that weren't discussed in school to get you ready for, the real world and, real life when it comes. We had a great conversation, episode 25, with, it was Nancy King yesterday. Nancy King, she brought a lot of gems and knowledge about property taxes, and how to appeal and the process and the whys and the how does it work. And so definitely when you have an opportunity, check out episode 25 with Nancy King. That was a great one. Last week, too, I want to give a shout out to last week. Had a great opportunity to speak with, who did I speak with first? It was April Prayer, attorney April Prayer. Had a great conversation with her. She's doing some amazing things. Just how, the literacy challenges, she challenged us on legal literacy. I never really heard of that term before. Obviously everyone talks about financial literacy and the lack thereof, and we need to get better at that, no doubt. But legal literacy was something I was interested in that conversation. That's episode, if I remember correctly, that's episode 23. So definitely episode 23. Check out April Prayer. She broke down some legal jargon that I was unfamiliar with. I even told the story of the one time that I had a client and we met right before the home inspection, and we were in Des Plaines, Illinois. And one of the neighbors in living in the neighboring house actually went ahead and called the cops on us. My client was a Hispanic, and obviously you know who I am, and so it was raining that day, and I got into his van, jumped in his van. It tells you how old this story is. It was, there was no e-signing. We weren't e-signing documents like we do now. Most times when applications are sent out, everything's e-sign, 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 whether it's dot loop, DocuSign. But this story took place when we were still like having to physically sign this paperwork. So I went out to meet him so he could sign it. And then once he signed it, we were in his van. And then the cops, knocked on the window. And they're like, "What are you guys doing here?" And and instead of just saying, "Hey, we're here for a home inspection, I'm a loan officer," I stayed quiet for a second to let him talk. And then he went ahead and was starting to, give the cop a hard time. "We're just chilling." And I was like, "My friend, you're my client. I want to help you close on this house, but I am not going to jail and I'm not getting shot today. There's not going to be a scenario where that's going to happen with me." You're like, "Hey, we are doing nothing illegal. All we're doing is signing mortgage paperwork. Here's my business card. And anything in that van, I don't want to know about it because I'm not there for that. I'm just here for the deal." But it is, a situation where, stuff like that, how do you handle those situations? What should you say? What should you not say? Is a reason why April really brought a lot of knowledge and gems. So I do highly recommend you check out April Prayer episode 23. Another great conversation I had last week was with Wendy Lee. I had a great opportunity to speak to Wendy Lee in reference to, we were just talking about real estate, really, and just making wealth management decisions. Just trying to be better overall. Trying to look at the market and say, how can I be successful? Real estate is an interesting dynamic. It's $1 trillion industry, and there's just so many different things you can do in real estate. You can be a realtor, you can work at a title company, you can be an appraiser, you can be a loan officer, you could be a home inspector. There's tons of ways to, get yourself into real estate. And we were just talking about, the do's and don'ts and what she does with her clients and, how does she kind of separate herself? Sometimes the whole real estate game, especially from a realtor perspective, what value are you bringing to the table? Because, if it's viewed as kind of a dime a dozen, right? Who doesn't know a realtor, and what realtor would you call if you needed something today? I mean, most people have, at least 2 to 3 different realtors, and they have to make a choice. So the question is, how are you going to make that choice? What is it going to be based upon? Is it based upon, hey, this person's my family, or they're knowledgeable, or they've had so many years of experience, or I see all their ads? How are you going to choose which one to work with? Because that makes a difference. And obviously, I think from a consumer perspective, all we're trying to do ultimately is have a great experience. As I like to call it, the epic experience. We're trying to give you an epic experience. So let's talk about some of the market pulse right now. I had a couple different notes that I wanted to talk about. So mortgage rates stay steady and why this isn't doom and gloom. So mortgage rates right now have really, taken a dip. The dip started really in mid-August. And remember, mortgage rates are anticipatory of where the market is heading. And so we have the Fed meeting, and I'm sure we'll talk about that once I have, some of the loan officers on, Vince, Marissa, and so on. But, the Fed are meeting September 17th. That's the next Fed meeting. And so we anticipate that the Fed are going to reduce rates about 0.25%. And then obviously we've harped on this, and I want to make sure everyone knows, so when we talk about the Fed rate, that's going to be indicative of your home equity line of credits, your credit cards, your car loans, credit cards. Those are going to be, you're going to see a decrease in the payment per month because those are, adjustable rates, and they are based and tied to the federal funds rate. Banks are lending to each other, and then obviously based on how much they can lend to each other, they lend to you in those realms. So, lines of credit, car loans, credit cards, that's what you're going to see the decrease in. And we anticipate, 25% rate cut. Now, there's about roughly an 80 to 90% chance that's going to happen. So since we already kind of anticipate that, the mortgage rates have slid down. They've slid down right now because of that fact. So we are in belief that we're going to see that quarter percent. So we're already have adjusted from mid-August to right about now as like lowest levels. So these are the lowest levels we've seen rates probably in the last 10 months. So if you bought a house, in 2023, 2024, maybe the beginning of this year, now would be a good time to look to refinance. So I start making those phone calls as, as an advocate for you. I want you to take advantage and see if, hey, can we take those 7% interest rates and get them down to sixes? In some cases, if you got great credit, we can even see high fives right now. High fives if you got an FHA type of loan. So once again, all you have to do is call me 708-905-5300. 708-905-5300. We can run some scenarios and see what's good for you. So this is a great opportunity right now to refinance and take advantage. And so that's why, we talk about this so much, because we want you to take advantage of the market when it's the right time. What generally happens, and this is why I even created this show, was you're going to find out that the Fed funds rate is going to drop a quarter percent next Thursday. And then you're going to next Wednesday, next Wednesday. And then you're going to want to say, hey, Dante, I heard the rates drop. What's going on? And it's too late. And you're like, what do you mean it's too late? Well, all the new news is coming out now. We have news reports that come out on a daily basis, and they can impact the market. So we're already seeing the dip. So from a mortgage perspective, we've already seen the dip. The dip has already occurred. It's here. It's here right now. So if you want to take advantage of lowering your payment, restructuring your debt, getting some cash out, now is the time. Now. And a lot of times people say, Dante, should we move forward now, or do you think we should wait? And I said, it's hard for me to answer that because I live in the now. Because I can't predict what's going to happen tomorrow. I can't predict what's going to happen in, next week. But I just know right now is a great time to take advantage. And so that's what you want to do. Another thing that's going on in the marketplace right now, and we've talked about this, and we're going to still have some more. Had a great conversation, when we talked about insurance, right? Homeowners insurance. We had I believe, an All-State representative on the call with us. Brought some great knowledge. Appreciate her. I think that was episode. Ooh, don't quote me on that. But there's an episode there. Make sure you check that out. That was a good episode about insurance. Once it comes to my head, I'm going off cuff a little bit, so bear with me. But we did discuss insurance premiums are rising and what it signals about market risk and opportunity. It's impacting us, similar to what I said with Nancy King yesterday, with real estate taxes, especially in Cook County, it's impacting us. Anytime you see increases on these amenities that we need. So homeowners insurance and taxes generally are included in your overall monthly payment. That affects us. That affects us in a way that we're not able to go ahead and, basically qualify for as much. So that's why, a person with the same amount of money, let's say you make $80,000, you probably will qualify for a higher purchase price in Georgia than you would necessarily in Florida. Why? Because the insurance prices are higher in Florida, as it's in kind of that Hurricane Valley. We also see that a lot in, the lower states, so Louisiana, Mississippi, and obviously the Houston region in Texas. We're licensed in Houston, or excuse me, licensed in Texas, we're licensed in Florida, licensed in Georgia. And so we help people down there, and we experience that where, insurance premiums are higher, compared to if I was in San Antonio, or if I was in Austin, or if I was in Dallas compared to Houston. And, right now, averages are going up. Even in Illinois, our average right now is about 2,200 a year. So when you're getting quotes out there, 2,200. Now I'm that old man sitting on the porch that will say, I remember when, right? I remember when insurance prices were basically $100 a month, which is 1,200 a year. And you could sometimes get it for cheaper than that, anywhere from, you know, excuse me, 70 to $80 per month. But nowadays, it has scooted up and up and up. So, being in the business long enough, you get to see some of these trends. And so it's interesting to see it. I remember when, $100. I was just talking to somebody. She was like, can you do a soft pull? I mean, on a credit report, versus a hard pull. And it was funny to me because it was like, well, I remember when credit reports were like $19, $15. Now they're $91 a pop. Okay, credit reports. So I've really have seen inflation. Sometimes like, what is inflation? And it's like, I've seen inflation, and it's nasty. So that brings me up to my third topic: affordability crunch. Why this challenges traditional thinking but opens creative doors. We're gonna have to figure out ways to kind of combat this. Because this affects life. I mean, obviously, if you have an expanding family, you need to upgrade your house. How are you going to go about doing it? We're going to have creative financing to figure out ways. Some of the traditional lending right now, that's, if you go to the local bank, it just doesn't get it done for most consumers out there, because most consumers have different ways of making income. I got off the phone today with a truck driver, and I was like, okay, he's got a CDL license, he's driving a truck, and he's paid 1099s. What does that mean? Basically taxes are not being taken out of his regular pay. So it's going to come down. And I said, hey, have you filed your taxes? And he says, I haven't filed my taxes in the last 3 years. So what do? Do you stay renting for the next, 30 years or 3 years until you can file your taxes? Or do you look for other alternative income programs that can allow you to still be able to purchase, even though you don't have the traditional income? And that's what we focus, at Epic Mortgage. We have the opportunity and ways to help people, with our AIP, as I like to call it. Everyone's got to have, little gimmicks or little acronyms. I'm a big acronym guy. So I came up with AIP, and that's the alternative income programs. Okay. So, being a broker, sometimes like, oh, he's a broker, ugh. And I'm like, well, no, it just means that I'm going to offer everything under the sun, as far as mortgage products that are available to you. I have down payment assistance. I have lines of credit. I have FHA. I'm a VA approved lender. I can do conventional. I can do USDA. So I have a lot of different ways to go ahead and help someone. And I have this little, kind of niche products right here called alternative income program. So we can do no income verified assets. We can do bank statements. We can do 1099 income. We can do CPA letters, P&Ls. So, a lot of variety to help you achieve the overall American dream, if there is such a thing, right? Is there still an American dream? I mean, we were sold a bill of goods, way back from the 1950s. FDR, sold us the bill of goods of this American dream, and for the last 70 some odd years, we've been chasing that. And now it's coming into question a little bit, isn't it? Isn't it? Is it not coming into question? Are you questioning, what I was sold? Is that really still obtainable? You know, and will it ever get better? It's just one of those realities. I was thinking about Elon Musk. For example, Elon, what, I don't know, he's worth $57 billion. That number never is going to, in theory, ever go down. So where is he in 20 years from now? In his 70s? Is it 300 billion, trillion? I mean, my goodness. I mean, where does that number go? So, most of those numbers won't go down. So, sometimes it's like, just being rational. It's like, how do we make this work? How do we expand our mind to make this work and kind of incorporate everyone? Because now we really are on different levels, different levels of goals. But I think the common focus goal, to keep it, keep everyone united is here, get you a piece of land, get you a piece of property, allow yourself to be a homeowner, gather that equity and give you some, it's almost like a forced safety net for yourself. It's almost like a forced 401k, for example. You're actually making that payment, and then, because you're making that payment every month, you're gaining equity. And that equity you can either, take out to, pay off debt and take cash out to start a business, or you could sell the property, buy another property, potentially lower your monthly payment, because now you have a bigger payment that you can put down because appreciation has just accrued over the years. It gives you a lot of opportunities to do some things that you might not have considered, because the power of owning assets. I think right now we're in an era where I think we're getting smarter. I hope that we are, as collectively, not just individually. I mean, it takes individuals, and then we have to come together and use it. But I think we should have the understanding that we want to own assets. We want to buy assets. I think when I look at the concept here is, we have to have, you have to have income, monthly income that pays your bills, that, sets the standard for your lifestyle. And then we have to have another bucket here of growth, and so you have to kind of have a mindset of having two buckets, and, and really separating your buckets out, based on the money that's coming in. I was listening to one guy, he was talking about the 75, what was it, 75, 10, and no, what is it? I think it's 75, 15. He's got to get to 100, right? So 75, 15, and 10 buckets. And so he was talking about 75% of your money that comes in. So if you make $1,000, $750 should go towards your lifestyle, your monthly bills, whether it's the Netflix subscription, and I see what, Netflix is kind of competing with Disney. Disney has, it's taken ESPN, obviously. Disney also owns Hulu. So now it's giving you this whole variety of, things that you can watch, right? So you have your children's section. You can go back in time and relive your childhood, right? Peter Pan and, Snow White's on there and all the different variations. Then you can go to Hulu and get your murder mystery and your comedies and all your game shows. Then you can go to ESPN and get all your sports. So you see that, Disney is starting to, pull in and say, hey, we have everything that your heart may desire. For such a long period of time, when you think about Netflix, Netflix and chill, right? That became a thing that we say. But you're watching TV shows, you're watching movies, but it didn't give you any sports. So you still had to leave the program. You had to leave the app and go out and search for something else. And so the mindset is starting to say, no, if I have you on the platform, I want you to stay on the platform. I never want you to leave the platform. And so now all of a sudden you have sports on Netflix. See how that works? They had the football on Netflix. I think that was for Christmas last year, was Houston versus Kansas City. They had Beyonce at halftime, if you guys remember that. That was a good performance. And then they had, and then what else came about? Now they got the big fight, right? Canelo Alvarez versus Terrence Crawford on Saturday, the big fight, and it's only on Netflix. So once again, they're trying to incorporate this live sporting event. I'm surprised Netflix didn't get the UFC. They kind of maybe have missed the boat on that, but that's why the money was so big, and that Paramount, CBS, Paramount, they were able to snag up the UFC. So now they have some sporting. If you're into mixed martial arts, you will go to Paramount apps. You just saw this also with the NBA, right? NBA just signed a new contract deal with NBC, and I was like, oh, okay, man, I haven't seen the NBA on NBC since I was a kid. That should be interesting. But to the chagrin, I was kind of disappointed. But it is what it is. Most of the games that were probably they're going to be televised are going to be on Peacock. So you're going to the apps again, right? They're catering to this fact that everyone's on their phones. You can just watch the game on your phone, and just call it a day. No longer. It was so funny, for years, if you think about it, we had this little, we went from the black and white TV in the '60s, and then you got and then everyone had to have what, at least two to three TVs in your house. And then everyone wanted the giant TV, that you could literally put on a flat wall, similar to this. If that sign Epic Mortgage was actually just a TV on there, everybody wanted that. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, I'm on the go, I'm on the move, I don't want to sit in here, I want to maybe lay out outside. And then everyone has adopted the phone. The phone is the option. So you just see the transition of people and just where they're moving, and you see where all these these companies and corporations, they're watching, with all this data that's out there. Big Brother is hovering over. How many times have you guys been on a phone call talking to somebody? Let's say you bring up Vegas, right? Here's my phone. Let's see if all of a sudden I say, hey, I love Vegas, I want to go to Vegas. And then all of a sudden all the ads will start coming. Vegas, you go to Vegas? Vegas next tomorrow? Hey, let me take you there. So it's one of those situations that kind of occur where they're monitoring us so much. Big Brother's looking at what we're doing, getting what we like to buy, what we like, what we don't like. They're getting all this data input, so they start to know us, and then they make they make assumptions, and they make solicitations to us based on all the things that we've liked, disliked, and such and such. So a little rant for you. But that brings me into being an entrepreneur. Brings me into an entrepreneur. Real estate is the ultimate entrepreneurial game. You build equity like seeds capital. You have different options. You have house hacking. You have rental strategies. You got the Burr method, obviously that's been adopted. Everyone knows what Burr is, right? I mean, at this point, we should all know what Burr is. But it's buying, renovating, renting, refinancing, and then repeating the actions over and over again. That is truly the best way to build a portfolio. And I mean, there's an assumption, right? So if you're building this portfolio, you're trying to build this, and once again, you have to have those two buckets. I'm going to be really big talking about the two buckets. You have to have your income bucket and you have to have your growth bucket. You definitely want to have your income bucket and growth. So you want to put money, every time you make money, you want to put money in all those buckets, in those two buckets. Just keep it simple for yourself. So income bucket takes care of your lifestyle, pays your bills, your mortgage, going to Chipotle, going to get your Dunkin' coffee. Are you a Dunkin' coffee guy, or are you a McDonald's coffee? I mean, these are real questions. These are questions that we have to figure out. What do we enjoy? What do we like? And based upon this, based upon these decisions, you're going to have to make sure you make X amount of money to continue your lifestyle that you have it. And if you don't have things that you want that are not in your life, for example, I want to go on vacation. I want to go to a beach every year. I want to go to the Chicago Sky game. I want to go to the aquarium in Georgia. I want to go to Daytona Beach, Florida. If you don't have the money to do that, then we have to look to grow our income. I never want people to be afraid not to make more money. There's almost like this, antichrist. Oh my God, I'm making more money. I never want you to be afraid of that. It is okay to make more money. It's okay. A little selfish. I think of my friend, no names here, but I was thinking about my friend, and he always said, when I choose a job, I choose a job that is going to take care of my family. Period. I can do any job, right? I'm multi-talented. I can work hard every day, but I'm going to choose a job that's going to take care of my family. That's my most important thing. And I always thought about that, and I love that idea. And I was like, really, and so it's family first. And that should be the mindset that you're taking care of your family first. And so the income, you should list down all the things you want to do with your family. List everything that you want to do with your family. And then once you list everything down that you want to do with your family, make sure you're doing it. And don't sacrifice because, well, I can't do it because I don't make enough money. Then go make more money. Find ways to do it. I just come from that family. Whether it's my cousins, whether it's my brother, we're just worker bees. I mean, that's just what we are. We're just guys that work. And I look at my brother. He'll work a 9 to 5 job, and then he's so passionate about his entrepreneurial project. He would do that from 6 o'clock to 12 o'clock, and that's his day. And sometimes what do they say? If you do something that you enjoy doing, it's not really work, right? If you're doing something that you enjoy doing, it's not work. So therefore, he doesn't look at it like, oh man, I'm working 10-hour days, 12-hour days. It's like this is my life. This is what I have to do. There is no question. This is what I have to do. So I look at that and I love that. And real estate can be a piece of the action. Real estate can be a solution for you. Okay. And I never want you guys to forget that. These are great opportunities. So you put the money in that income bucket to take care of your lifestyle, but you got to make sure you're putting money in the growth bucket. My dad, when I was a kid, my dad said that, 10%, Dante, 10%. Every time you make a check, you got to put 10% in. You have to put 10% in. And that's what I strive to do. So if I made $1,000, I always try to put $100 into my bucket. Nowadays, that's not enough. I mean, just let's call it for what it is. It's not enough, because inflation, is an erosion to your income. Inflation is an erosion to your income. It eats away and takes away from you. And that's the problem with that. Uh, um, it's a major problem that we have is that, over time, it eats into your pocketbooks. And so that's a major problem that we have. So, and we have to figure out ways to, always, based on this, society and this economic, kind of situation that we're in, especially being in America, you can't really sit on your laurels. Inflation, that mechanism that they put into the system, really puts us at a disadvantage where we can't just sit down and relax. For example, in 1998, let's put some numbers to it. In 1998, $90,000 is equivalent to basically 2018. Let's fast forward. So in 20 years, $90,000 in 1998 is equivalent to $120,000 in 2018. Okay, so if you were making $120,000, right? That's $10,000 a month in 2018. You would have felt like you were making $90,000 in 1998. So you see how it's gone up. You know what I mean? If we fast forward, it probably is going to be closer to 135 to 140,000. So, it's constantly moving the needle. That's what inflation does. It erodes your income. So you have to always have that mindset of how can I make more money? How can I be successful? You kind of have to have that mindset built in as you're building out your lifestyle. That's your income side, but you can't forget about the growth side because eventually you won't have the same energy, right? You won't have the same energy. You may not have the same time priorities. Your priorities change. Your mindset shifts, your priority changes, things are different in your life, and then you'll elect to do something different. And that's kind of the thing. I made a comment to people that I work with. I said, hey, when I turn 62, I'm going to retire from doing mortgages. Now, I may still do this, this is a little bit different, a little bit, still want to help people and all that stuff, but the day in, day out, I won't be doing it, in 17 years from now. So, I've made that kind of decree. I'm telling you, the world out there, I'm here, going to give it my all for 17 years. And then I might want to do something else, because you only get one. I'm not going to get into reincarnation or what do you believe, but as far as I know, you only get one, and that's one life. And so I want to do something else. After 40 years of doing this, I'm going to do something else, maybe for the next 40 years. So I think you have to look at those things from an entrepreneurial level of saying, hey, if my job can only do this for me, if it can get me here, it's not saying it's a bad job and it's not saying to leave that job. But if my job can only get me here, I have to have the mindset of what can I do to make more money? What can I do, as a side hustle to increase? Because I need to make this because these are the things I want in my life. I just think we just so much get complacent and we just allow these people, to kind of dictate, how my life will be instead of me dictating to them what I should do with my life. You only get one, so it's a little bit of a YOLO. You only live once. So remember that. All right. All right. It is time. It is time. Where are my notes? Where are my copious notes? It is time for housekeeping notes, ladies and gentlemen. Housekeeping notes. So, ladies and gentlemen, housekeeping notes. This episode today is sponsored by Epic Mortgage. Whether you're buying, refinancing, or investing, call Epic today. That's 708-905-5300, 708-905-5300. It's your dreams, your goals. Let's plan together. Now, if you are looking for the blueprint, I don't even know. Okay. I had my book. Sorry. I usually have it behind me. It fell down. No biggie. It is the Ultimate Mortgage Guide, ladies and gentlemen. The Ultimate Mortgage Guide. It's available on Amazon. If you need a blueprint on what you need, this is a compilation of over 20 years of me working in this industry. 20. I got 20 more, but this is a compilation of 20 years of working in, and people were asking me the same questions. They were asking me the same questions. So I said, hey, you know what? Let me write a book. Let me answer these questions. Let me give it to you. So then that way you have the information readily available. I don't care if you live in Arizona. I don't care if you live in Nebraska. I don't care if you live in South Dakota. I don't care if you live in Pennsylvania. I don't care if you live in Maine, Vermont. One of those days I will get up there. I'll get to Martha's Vineyard. But it doesn't matter. This information will help you. Whether you're buying in Texas, Georgia, Florida, I can help you, I can hold your hand and walk you through the fire. But even if you're working with a different loan officer, Arizona, California, a place that I'm not licensed in, it's okay. It's okay. Buy the book. It'll give you the blueprint. It'll give you questions to ask your loan officer. Make sure you understand the process. That is the key. Understanding the process, knowing what's happening. So then that way you're not confused because, there's a process that's going on. And if you're not ready, you're like, what's going on? I didn't know this. After this show, though, after the show is over, please go to my YouTube channel, Epic Spotlight. Make sure you give it a like and share it with friends and family. We have our Epic Spotlight interview. So one of the things I do on our YouTube channel is that I actually provide an interview every week. I'm trying to give you knowledge from different experts, different professionals out there, doing some phenomenal things. Really trying to have engaging conversations that hopefully you appreciate and you can learn something from it. To me, I am a compilation of all the little nuggets, from Grant Cardone, Ty Lopez, Gary Vaynerchuk, Patrick Bet-David, all these little people, Matt Sapala. I mean, the list goes on and on. I take little nuggets, Dave Ramsey, I can name drop all these people that I've learned, Dan Patrick, Colin Cowherd, all these little people have some knowledge that you can take from it, learn something from it, and apply it to your own life. So, that's what I've done. And I just made it simple that you can just go to Epic Spotlight, the channel, take a listen to some of these professionals from the Midwest, from down south, a variety of folks, and just learn something from them. And hopefully that can better your life and put you in a better situation. And let me know about it, in the comment section. Let me know. I'm here to try to, help you shift that mindset and help you grow. So check out the latest Epic Spotlight interview with Brent Wilk. He's a seasoned realtor. Brent understands the deep trust that his clients place in him, and he works relentlessly to exceed expectations. His story is a masterclass in professionalism and client care. So check out the Brent Wilk Epic Spotlight interview. Okay, that's a good one, and it's available right on Epic Spotlight. Right after the show, make sure you check that out. We do have our preferred listings, so let me get through these. 8228 South LaSalle, Chicago, Illinois. It's going for $250,000. It's a 3-bed, 1-bath. Contact Amico Pope, 312-600-7673. We have a commercial storage going for 165. It's 1413 East End, Chicago Heights, Illinois. Contact Amico Pope 312-600-7673. We have 1645 Western Avenue, Chicago Heights, Illinois. It's a commercial storefront going for 339. Contact Keith Terry 773-655-1360. We have 6945 South Dorchester Avenue, Unit 2S, Chicago, Illinois. 3-bed, 1-bath. Contact Evelyn Woods 773-718-9742. We also have 2030 East 72nd Place, Unit 3D, Chicago, Illinois, going for 109. It's a 2-bed, 1-bath. Contact Evelyn Woods, 773-718-9742. We have 9049 South Parnell Avenue, Chicago, Illinois, going for 279-980. It's a 3-bed, 2-bath. Contact Sebastian Kupiec, 773-430-8988. And we have 1605 South 16th Avenue, Maywood, Illinois, 250,000. It's a 4-bed, 1-bath. Contact Tamika Bishop, 630-479-6352. All those preferred listings are available on my website, which is www.danteroyster.com. DanteRoyster.com. All right, so let's get some questions answered. I appreciate people putting in comments. If you have any comments, or give it a thumbs up, a like, whether you're on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, just give it a like. Let me know that you're there. Appreciate you. All right, let's start off with Mac. Love how you make real estate feel like an entrepreneurial adventure. Appreciate that, Mac. Really do appreciate that. Thank you very much. It is entrepreneurial. You got to go out and make it happen. I don't have any salary. So I have to go out there and make it happen. I am trying to do the best I can. It starts with helping people first and foremost. You have to have kind of that heart in the game to want to help. I want to see people grow. I like that. I remember when I was a manager. Now I'm an owner, but I mean, at the same, the manager level, really getting to put time into people and watching them, like the light bulb pop up. I just enjoy that the most, really seeing the light bulb pop up. And I can do that for consumers, show them something that they never anticipated, show them something that they didn't consider, show them a different way. It doesn't always have to be like this. It can be different. Your life can be different, so it's like realtors say. I mean, even as a mortgage lender, I mean, sometimes I'm a therapist, I'm a coach, financial coach, I'm a therapist. You can do it. There's just so much self-doubt in this world. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's in our food that we eat, but there's just so much self-doubt, so much it feels like it's like that invisible rope. You're supposed to hold on. We were talking about the American dream earlier. Hold on to the dream, but people give up. It is what it is. I hear these things. Living the dream, trying to, but even living the dream, even that adage, I'm okay with it, because at least you're trying to, it's all a mental shift that you're trying to do, with mindset. Even though I say, hey, you're living the dream, I better not be in your dream. But that's just a joke. So appreciate that, Mac. Next one, Adam. What's the number one mind shift buyers should make right now? That's a good question. That's a very good question. I would say the number one mind shift is just, you can do it. You can do it. I mean, for whatever reason, and we're seeing a softening right now in home buyership, home ownership, excuse me. We're seeing people that are, not, forget about it. It's too much. It's too expensive. It's just a lot of negativity. And we need to, understand that, you have to buy assets. I talked about Dunkin' Donuts. I talked about, getting your iced coffee, Starbucks, what have you. We spend stuff frivolously on things that, we just consumerism. We need to spend money on things that are assets that can, help us. And, basically buying a house, with equity in time is like a forced savings account for us. And for those out there are having struggling, really, I gave the formula 75, 15, and 10, which would basically be 75% of your money should go towards your lifestyle. 15% should go towards growth and investing. And then 10% should just be an emergency fund. with that type of formula in mind, that's a situation that, hey, we need to be saving money, putting money aside. We need to be building. We need to have that mind shift change on just financial literacy and how important it is. Understanding how money works and how I can best put myself forward in this economy. This is where we are. I mean, unless you want to go somewhere else, move to somewhere else. I hear, you know, pundits, and I hear people, hey, I wish it was like this, and hey, I wish it was like that, and some of it I agree with. I get it. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, why isn't it like that? I wish it could be. But the reality is, I don't see it changing anytime soon. There's just the wheels have gone. The toothpaste is out of the tube. Toothpaste is out of the tube. It's here. This is what it is. So I mean, we can always sit, on a Friday night, in a windowsill, or we can around a campfire and talk about what would be nice and what would make the world better. And hey, kudos to those people that want to fight that fight. But I definitely am in a situation, or at least, hey, it is what it is. That's what, I don't think I signed up for it. I think I was born into it, but now I just got to make the best of it. So I mean, I get it. I get it. And I agree with some of the ideas like, hey, it shouldn't be like this, and this is not right, and greed is bad, and all that stuff. Hey, thumbs up. You're right. But what you gonna do? And where you gonna go? Because every time I hear is one of the best places to live and be, and the best freedoms that you can have. So we got to make we got to make do with what we have. That's my 2 cents on that. How can buyers overcome fear when rates feel high? Really historically, I think we have to look at just history. That's a great question. Appreciate that, Adventure Show. I mean, historically, if we look at the track record, right? I've talked about this from the 1970s to 2025. The last 50 years, rates on average have been about 8%. Okay, 8%. What you're feeling is high is based on the last decade, from 2010 to 2019. That decade, the average rate was about 4%. And I'm sure there's, quite a few people on this call that are on this Zoom or listening today that are saying, well, Dante, I got less than that. So I understand. So, anything that's triple a 2% interest rate may seem high, which would be 6%. Like, I have 2% and you tell me to go to 6, that's high. Well, let's be relatively speaking, it's higher than what you have, but relatively speaking, it's still historically low. All right. So we have to look at the overall track record and understand how historically low this is. And then we have to, keep that in mind, and that's what we have to do. Next question here. What's the smartest way to use equity right now? You know, I try to stay away from hyperboles. I'm not a big hyperbole guy. Smart is best. Not in our business, because there's so many different strategies. There's so many ways to skin the cat, and I don't want people to get discouraged because I say do this. Oh, you want to do this, but I'm going to do it this way. I mean, just think about how many people are successful, and just different routes they go. There are trends, right? We know that 85% of millionaires have real estate. So those are good trends that we can keep in mind. But I don't think there's a smartest way to use equity. I mean, it's based on what you want. I mean, what do you want out of your life? I mean, that's where, the mindset is the number one thing in anything we do. You want to be successful? What does success look for you? Because that's a subjective word. That word means different from me to you, right? If I say, hey, I'm successful, well, how do I say that? Well, what do you mean? And other people say, hey, I'm successful. Okay. You can be successful being a great dad. Hey, I'm in and out of jobs, hard to find a job in today's market that's gonna, but I'm willing to work. I'm going through jobs. I'm working 2, 3 jobs, but I'm an awesome dad. I'm a provider of love to my wife. That guy is successful. Right? From a personal level, man, hey, kudos. Awesome. A great husband, a great support, and a great dad. Come on. He's raising kids. I mean, he made that a part of his life, a part of something that he wants to do. Hey, man, kudos. That's awesome. Awesome sauce. Now, um, now other people may, oh, he's going in, he's had 5, 6 jobs, can't keep a job. So it's subjective. So really, what do you want? Obviously, as people get to learn my story, the Epic Mortgage. Epic Mortgage wouldn't be here today without my equity in my house. That is, that's why I'm the true testament of belief in home equity, taking advantage of it, buying early, so you have times where this can, I bought my house when I was 25, my first home, and just the power that is brought to me, throughout my life. So starting early was my key to success. If you view that I have success, I'm still not where I want to be. Some people do look at me and say, Dante, you're a success, man. I'm like, I'm nowhere yet. I'm not there yet. I'll tell you when I get there. I'm not there yet. I'm working on it. I'm trying to get there, but I'm not there yet. I'm still working. But it's up to you. You have to kind of create it. And once you do create, what you want, so first you got to write it down. What are you trying to do? You want to start your own business, you got an idea, you want to create a product. Maybe that might be, I had a conversation yesterday with a client of mine, and we're working on it right now, where he wants to take cash out of his property, and he saw a property in Wrigleyville. You know, hopefully no one's going to get it before him, but he saw a property in Wrigleyville that is available, and he needs the down payment. So we're going to take the cash out there and get it, because he sees the future appreciation in the Wrigleyville area. The Chicago Cubs are in the Wrigleyville area, and obviously they're trying to build out their whole little, like a Cub city, so to speak. I'm not a Cub fan, so you know I kind of know what they're doing, but I'm not really paying attention. Okay, I'm SOX. Okay, for you guys from you guys that are in Chicago, you know what time it is. You got to choose a lane. You can't be, from the people from the outside, they always want to say, "Hey, why can't you just be a Chicago fan?" No, they messed that up with interleague play. Once they made interleague play where American League had to go against National League, that line was drawn, and you got to choose a side. Okay, I'm SOX. I'm Southside Chicago White Sox is my team of choice. But anyway, in the North Side, they have Wrigleyville. It's a prominent area, and they're growing and building a bunch of stuff. He has an opportunity to grab something there. He needs the down payment, and so we're going to do a cash out refinance on a property. Grab that money, boom, boom, bing, and put that money down on a new property. And then there we go. We're building, not only building investment portfolio, but we're buying assets. That is the theme. I think that's the thing that we're talking about today. You have to be buying assets. I don't care if you're buying stocks. I don't care if you're buying real estate, but you got to be buying assets. Things that can appreciate, things that can grow for you, things that you can sell and make money. Even obviously they talk about cars, right? Cars are a depreciating value, right? As soon as you buy a car, as soon as you go off the lot, boom, the value starts to go down. But if you're going to do I forgot the app. If someone knows the app, tell me. I think it's Turbo, but whatever, the app where you can put your car out there, and then people can rent the car on a daily basis, weekly basis. For people that need cars, they can rent out the car on this website. What a great idea. Now that's when a car can be an asset, right? If you're going to have a car and just put it on that website and allow people to drive it, this, that, and the third, okay, now you have an asset. So buying cars can be an asset if you're going to turn around and make some money on it on a rental level. So whatever is going to be an asset, I encourage you to participate, join it, figure it out, learn it, and take advantage of it. Mac again, how can entrepreneurs think differently about mortgages? That's a great question. Mortgages is a wealth building machine. And what we have to do is not be afraid of money. We first have to understand what money is and how it can work. And then we have to figure out ways to how do I take $100 and make it 200? How do I take 10,000 and make it 100,000? Am I flipping a property? Am I wholesaling a property? What am I doing? I have a story. Eventually, once it's 100% complete, I will share with you. It's a crazy story, but it's going to be a good story. Hopefully, at the end result. But basically, having the ability to take money and make money from it is huge. It's huge, and so that these are but it's risk. There's risk involved. So hey, it's not for I had a buddy. I'll send a shout out to Joe Costello. He always, in my BNI group way back in the day, Joe would say that one of his clients said, "Real estate is not for sissies." You have to take risk, and if you're not ready to be able to take risk, this may not be for you. And it's interesting too when we do case studies. When you got the guy who makes, hey, I make $140,000, Dante. I make $140,000. I have a property. I'm paying my mortgage. And I'm saving, $5,000 a month in, my Roth IRA and my pension, blah blah blah. Do I need to do all this? And those are good questions. Those are good questions. But it comes back to, what do you want? Do you want to be done earlier? Do you want to take more trips? Do you want to have to wake up and be at work meetings at 8 o'clock in the morning and do a Zoom call at 2:30? If you don't want to do those things, then maybe there's a different way we can look at attacking life. But if you're comfortable in doing that for the next 30, 40 years, then maybe you are fine. So you have to kind of self-evaluate you. I've always said you are your best financial advisor. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm a mortgage professional. I'm a mortgage specialist, and I can guide you and help you if real estate becomes a path you want to go down. But at the end of the day, I am not the best advisor for you. Who's the best advisor for you? You. You are. You know what keeps you up at night. You know what makes you sweat. You know what makes you nervous. You know, you, and you have to do what's best for you. I can just give you the notes. I can give you the facts. I can give you real life experiences, things that I'm dealing with, things that I'm trying to overcome. But at the end of the day, it's you. You have to do it for yourself. You have to understand that, hey, I can do this, or I want something more out of my life. You have to self evaluate. That I think that's a part of being an entrepreneur, self evaluation, recognizing who you are, what you're trying to accomplish. I'm trying to have a successful business. I want to have a successful business that, the region knows who I am. They know who Epic Mortgage is. They know Dante Royster, and they know we're going to provide a good product. We're going to get the deal done, and we're going to have clients that feel comfortable and giving us an opportunity to walk them through the fire and obtain these goals that they're trying to do for themselves. That is what I'm trying to do. That's what I'm trying to deliver on a day in, day out basis. So once I have that game plan in mind, once I have that set up, that's what I want, then I have to go out and make it happen. And that's why we're here on a live show Monday through Thursday from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. Central Time, spreading the word, showing you, hey, I'm here. I'm committed to you. I'm committed to giving you good information. And hopefully, if you liked it today, make sure you give it a thumbs up. No matter if you're on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube, let me know. Hey, you know what? We don't have to talk about this. Oh, I didn't know about this. Let me know, because that helps me make sure I deliver that message on a day in, day out basis. What mindset shift helps most during market uncertainty? Reading. mindset shift, just, you have to stay positive. We just, there's a lot of self implosion. I was thinking of the Chicago Bears last night. They lost on Monday Night Football, and it was self-inflicted wounds that really ruled the day. They self-inflicted wounds when they had the chance to knock out the Vikings. They weren't able to do that. So mindset shift is, you can't be woe is me. You have to try to see the positivity. I have a great Epic Spotlight interview coming up on a guy talking about mindset. So make sure you check that out coming soon. I'll tell you when it's out. But, the thing is, we have to have a positive mindset. We have to, you have to have faith. Faith is is really an important word to me. Having faith and having the ability to know that I can do this. What's meant for me is meant for me. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to do. I was given. By I was given. Someone passed me the tools to be able to be successful, and I have to now go out there and make it happen. And so the mindset shift really is, just making sure that you have a faith based and positive mindset that everything's going to work out. Everything is meant to be for you. You just have to put the work in. You have to put the work in. Every mortgage is either rent in disguise or capital in the making. It depends on your mindset. I'm going to read that again. Every mortgage is either rent in disguise or capital in the making. It depends on your mindset. That's that half empty, half full glass of water, right? If I have that glass of water, is it half empty or half full? It's all about the mindset. Some people are having their best year this year. Are you? Some people are having their best year this year. Are you? As we finish up the quarter number 3 and we go into quarter number 4, this is where you finish strong. Sometimes people are going to wrap it up. It's over. End of the year. I got Thanksgiving and Christmas coming up. I'm getting ready. I'm tapping out maybe next year. Or are you going to finish strong? You're going to put your head down and run through the tape. And that's really, a mindset, that, hey, the year's not over. I got Q4 coming up and I'm going to finish strong. It may have started slow. It may have started fast and then started going slow, but I'm going to finish strong. I'm going to run through the tape, and that's what we try to do. And that's what's going on. We're going to have another show tomorrow, Wednesday, hump day. Honestly, I don't remember who's going to be on, but make sure I'm going to send out a reminder. I'll send it to you, and I can't wait. I think it's Brent Bauer is going to be on the show tomorrow, so I'm looking forward to that. Someone new. We'll have a conversation and take it from there. If not, I'll be back again, and we'll talk some more stuff. Don't forget, we're here Monday through Thursday, 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. So, and also too, one thing I got to start remembering, they keep telling me about it, and I do, it escapes me sometimes, is I do have a newsletter. I do have a newsletter that comes out on Fridays. Definitely check that out. Newsletter comes out on Friday. So if you are interested, you can DM me, you can message me. I can get you on the newsletter. It gets you more breakdown, more knowledge about the real estate market. So, if you want to DM me, whether you're on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube, just DM me, send me a message, and I'll make sure that you're on there. Hey, thank you so much for everyone listening to me. I really appreciate you. You guys made it easy for me today, and everyone have an epic day, and let me go to work. All right, you guys, take care.